Okay, so I wanted to talk about the situation in relation to Gary Lineker, which no doubt you have all heard about. The fact that he was suspended from the BBC because of a tweet. Now, what I'm going to start with is the employment law perspective and not my views on it. So the first thing to say is that probably Gary Lineker isn't an employee. The chances are he is self-employed, as many presenters are, because they work for a number of organisations. But let's just say Gary Lineker was an employee of the BBC. Now, would it have been reasonable to suspend him for the allegations in relation to the tweet that he made? So I've been thinking about this and the reasons for suspension. Now, the reasons for suspension, if the employer had said that they were concerned that he may repeat his views on air, then that may justify suspension. If they were just suspending him because they wanted to investigate it, then I don't think that that in itself would justify suspension. So in order to suspend someone, it has to be reasonable and proportionate in relation to what you want to achieve. And so in the case of the employer here, the BBC, if he were a regular employee and they said, actually, the reason we've decided to suspend you is because we're concerned that you may repeat these allegations or these views, on air, then that would possibly justify suspension. Now, if they were just saying we wanted to investigate it and they didn't have any real concerns about him repeating his views on air, then it wouldn't justify suspension, in my view. So that's the first thing about his suspension. The second thing is any further action. So if you're an employee and you use social media to express your views and they're contrary to the views of your employer, would it be reasonable for your employer to discipline you or dismiss you because of that? Now, that will very much depend on a couple of things. The first is what your employer's policies and procedures say about it. So if your employer's policies and procedures are very clear that you have to be careful about reputational issues on your own social media, then it would potentially be a disciplinary issue. And also given the nature of your job role and what you're saying and the nature of your employer. So it isn't really a one-size-fits-all. You could say something that could be completely innocuous to one employer, but actually would be very serious to the reputation of another. So that's the employment law perspective. Now, in my view, I think Gary Lineker is perfectly within his rights to express his views on his own social media. And the fact that they are contrary to the BBC General's views is not something that should be dealt with in public. But that's my own views on it.